His parents compared me to his ex at every family gathering. My boyfriend stayed silent, so I told him to call her. My name is Claire Bennett, and I'm 31 years old. 2 years ago, if someone had asked what I wanted in a relationship, my answer would have been simple: a man who was honest, kind, and willing to stand beside me when it mattered most. When I met Ethan Carter, I truly believed I'd found him. We met at a 4th of July barbecue through mutual friends. Neither of us was looking for anything serious, but one conversation turned into another, and 3 days later we had our first date. Everything between us felt effortless. We laughed at the same things, preferred quiet weekends over crowded bars, and after a year together, we moved into our first apartment. 6 months later, I realized I wasn't competing with another woman. I was competing with the memory of one. Her name was Olivia. We'd never met, and she'd been out of Ethan's life for 18 months before I came along. Somehow, though, she never really left. I understood that the first time Ethan took me to Thanksgiving dinner with his family. They lived about 2 hours away, so visiting them every month had become routine. On the drive there, I admitted I was nervous. "They'll love you," Ethan said with an easy smile. Looking back, I think he genuinely believed that, or maybe he'd grown so used to his family's behavior that he no longer noticed it. His parents' house looked like something out of a holiday commercial, with pumpkins on the porch and the smell of roasted turkey drifting through the front door. His mother greeted me warmly enough that I started to relax. That feeling lasted less than 10 minutes. While carving the turkey, she smiled and said, "You know who used to do this perfectly? Olivia." The conversation shifted so naturally that everyone joined in. His father laughed about how capable Olivia had been. His younger brother joked she was even better with tools than Ethan, and the whole table smiled. Everyone except me. I hadn't even picked up the carving knife. I was standing there holding a bowl of mashed potatoes, yet somehow I was already being compared to a woman who wasn't even in the room. I glanced at Ethan, expecting him to step in. Instead, he kept arranging plates as though he hadn't heard a thing. I told myself it was only one awkward comment. Families reminisced, and maybe I was taking it too personally. After dinner, I helped clear the table, hoping doing something useful would make me feel less like an outsider. Instead, his aunt joined me at the sink. "You seem very sweet," she said before lowering her voice. "It's just, Olivia fit into this family so naturally. She loved the opera, fine restaurants, art museums. She always looked elegant." Then she looked me over. "You do own a formal dress, don't you?" "I wore one to Ethan's cousin's wedding." She smiled politely. "That's right. I'd forgotten." The sentence sounded harmless, but the message wasn't. By the time we left, I felt like I'd spent an entire evening competing with someone who wasn't even there. Halfway home, I finally broke the silence. "Your family really misses Olivia." "They were close to her." "It's been 18 months, Ethan. They compared my job, my car, even the way I dress. Every conversation somehow became another reminder that she was better." "They don't mean it like that." I looked at him. "Then tell me what they do mean." "They're just remembering old times." "No, they're comparing me to someone who isn't even part of your life anymore." I kept his eyes on the road. "They're harmless. They're disrespectful." Neither of us spoke for a while. When I finally asked why he and Olivia had broken up, he admitted she had wanted marriage while he hadn't been ready. That answer stayed with me. Weeks later, after another disastrous family gathering, I finally reached my limit. "I need you to choose," I said. "I am choosing you." "No, you're dating me." "That's not the same thing." He stared at me, confused. "The next time your family compares me to Olivia, I need you to stop them. They'll think I'm attacking them." "I don't care what they think. They've been attacking me for 18 months. He leaned back and let out a frustrated breath. "So this is an ultimatum?" "No, it's a boundary." "This is ridiculous." I held his gaze. "If your family still believes Olivia is the woman you should have ended up with, then stop arguing with me." He frowned. "What are you talking about?" "Call her." His eyes widened. "What?" "Call Olivia." "I can't just call my ex." "Why not? Your family has spent the last year and a half acting like she's only waiting for you to come back. Let's find out if they're right." He stared at me for several seconds before pulling out his phone. "I'll prove you're overreacting." He found her number and pressed call. It rang twice. "Hello? Olivia, it's Ethan." A surprised pause followed. "Ethan? I know this is unexpected, but I was hoping we could talk." "About us." Snow drifted quietly past the windshield while neither of us spoke. When Olivia answered again, her voice was gentle. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Why?" Another pause. "I'm engaged." The words seemed to drain every bit of air from the car. What? We got engaged last month. We're getting married in April. Neither of us said anything. The heater hummed softly while snow drifted across the windshield. Neither of us looked at each other. There was nothing left to argue about. Olivia had spoken for less than a minute, yet somehow every excuse Ethan had repeated for 18 months disappeared with her final sentence. For the first time since I'd known Ethan, he looked smaller. Not because Olivia had rejected him, but because 18 months of excuses had collapsed in less than a minute. His family had spent every holiday waiting for a woman who had already built a life with someone else, while he'd spent those same months asking me to be patient with people chasing a future that no longer existed. I hope you're happy, Ethan, Olivia said softly before ending the call. Ethan kept staring at the dark screen long after the call ended. Your family's been waiting for someone who already left, I said quietly. He swallowed before finally looking at me. I didn't know. I believe you, I replied. That's the problem. You never wanted any of this, but you never wanted me enough to protect me from it either. The words landed harder than I expected. His shoulders slowly sagged as every excuse he'd been holding on to seemed to disappear at once. So this is really it? I nodded. It is. We've been over for a long time, Ethan. Tonight just made it impossible to pretend otherwise. Neither of us spoke for the rest of the drive. By the time we pulled into the apartment parking lot, the decision had already been made. He reached for my hand. I was already opening the door. Neither of us raised our voices after we got home. There were no slammed doors, no broken dishes, no dramatic accusations. I simply walked into the bedroom, opened the closet, and started taking his clothes off the hangers. He stood in the doorway watching me in disbelief. What are you doing? I'm packing. I looked into the suitcase before quietly asking, my things? I nodded. Yes. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious. We can fix this. I folded another sweater into the suitcase without looking up. No, you can fix yourself. You can repair your relationship with your family if that's what you want. But you can't undo 18 months of standing there while they made me feel like I didn't belong. For the first time since we'd met, he had nothing to say. An hour later, he loaded the last suitcase into his car. Before closing the trunk, he looked back at me with an expression I'd never seen before. I never thought this would actually happen. Neither did I. I thought you'd calm down. A faint smile crossed my face. I already did. He searched my expression, still hoping to find the woman who always gave him one more chance. She was gone. I'll call you tomorrow. You don't have to. I think we should talk. We've been talking for 18 months, Ethan. You just weren't listening. He stood there for another moment before quietly getting into the car. I watched his taillights disappear around the corner, then walked back upstairs. When I walked back inside, the apartment felt unfamiliar, not because Ethan was gone, but because the silence no longer felt heavy. For months, I'd lived with constant anxiety, wondering what comparison I'd hear at the next family dinner or whether Ethan would finally defend me. That weight was gone, and for the first time in a long while, I could breathe. 11 days passed before my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, and I almost ignored it. Hello? Claire? It was Ethan's mother. Her voice sounded gentler than I'd ever heard it. I wanted to talk. I'm listening. Ethan's devastated. I'm sorry he's hurting. We never thought you'd actually leave. I closed my eyes. No, you thought I'd keep accepting it. She sighed. We just missed Olivia. I know. She was part of our family for years. It was never personal. I let out a slow breath. You compared me to her every time I walked into your house. My career, my gifts, the way I dressed, even the way I carved turkey somehow became another reminder that Olivia had done it better. We were only being honest. I almost smiled. No matter how the conversation started, it always ended with the same excuse. I appreciate your honesty, I said. So let me be honest too. I ended a relationship where I was treated like a permanent comparison instead of a partner, and I'm not going back. But Ethan loves you. If he loved me, he had 18 months to show it. Her voice softened. He finally understands. I hope he does. For his next relationship. Several seconds passed before she spoke again. Olivia wouldn't take him back. I frowned. What? We didn't know she was engaged. I know, Ethan told me. Rain slid slowly down the kitchen window as I listened. So the woman your family spent 18 months waiting for had already built a completely different life, I said quietly. She began crying. We made a terrible mistake. You made that same mistake over and over again. I don't know how to fix this. You can't. Please don't give up on him. I already did. I ended the call. 2 days later, Ethan's father called. Unlike his wife, he didn't apologize. You need to stop acting like this. I almost laughed. Like what? Throwing away a good relationship. I didn't throw it away. Your family did. We were just being honest. That's the same excuse your wife used. I ignored the comment. You're 31. You won't find someone overnight. Is that supposed to scare me? I'm saying relationships take work. They do, but they also require respect. You should have been tougher. I thought about every family dinner, every comparison, every time Ethan chose silence instead of standing beside me. No, I said calmly. I walked away because your son watched it happen for 18 months and never once told any of you to stop. He let out a frustrated breath. So that's it? You're abandoning him? He abandoned me first. Ethan's father hung up without another word, but the calls didn't stop. That evening, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Ryan. Ryan, you seriously dumped him over a few jokes? I stared at the message for a moment before replying. Amazing, you mocked my career, my car, my clothes, and spent 18 months telling me Olivia was better. Which part was supposed to be funny? He started typing almost immediately, stopped, then finally sent a reply. Ryan, we were kidding. I answered with one final message. Funny jokes make everyone laugh. I was the only one who wasn't. Then I blocked his number. 3 days later, another unknown number came through. I almost ignored it until I recognized Ethan's aunt the moment she spoke. You've hurt this entire family. I looked around my quiet apartment. No, your family hurt itself. We were only trying to help Ethan. Help him do what? Convince himself he'd chosen the wrong woman. She hesitated. We wanted him to remember who was best for him. I closed my eyes for a second. You spent 18 months telling me I wasn't enough. Now you're asking me to fix the damage your family created. It doesn't work like that. But Olivia moved on a long time ago. The only people still living in that relationship are all of you. She had nothing else to say, and the call ended. I thought that would finally be the end of it. It wasn't. That Friday evening, there was a knock at my door. Ethan stood in the hallway looking exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, and the same jacket he'd worn the night he left. I know you probably don't want to see me. You're right. I gave a small nod. I deserve that. For a moment, neither of us spoke before he quietly said, I talked to my parents. I told them everything should have stopped a long time ago. My mom cried, my dad apologized, and Ryan admitted he'd been acting like an idiot. I waited. They all know they were wrong now. I'm glad. He searched my face. That's all? What were you expecting? I thought maybe it changed something. It changed them, I said gently. It doesn't change what happened. He lowered his eyes. I'll never let anyone treat you like that again. 6 months earlier, those words would have meant everything. Now they arrived too late. I believe you, I said. Hope briefly crossed his face before I finished. I just don't want to be the person who finds out. His shoulders sank. I guess I earned that. Yes. He slipped a folded envelope from his jacket and placed it on the welcome mat. I wrote everything down. Read it if you ever want to. Then he walked away. I waited until the elevator doors closed before picking it up. The envelope sat untouched on my kitchen table for 3 days. Every morning I saw it beside my keys, and every evening it was still there. Not because I wanted to punish Ethan, but because I already knew what it contained. An apology that had arrived after 18 months of silence. On the 4th night, I finally opened it. The letter was honest. Ethan admitted he'd noticed the comparisons almost from the beginning, but kept convincing himself they weren't serious. Whenever his mother praised Olivia, he told himself she was only being nostalgic. When his father compared our careers, he assumed he didn't realize how hurtful it sounded. When Ryan mocked my car, he dismissed it as immaturity. Page after page described the excuses he'd made until one sentence stopped me cold. I thought keeping everyone happy meant staying quiet. I finally understand that staying quiet meant choosing them over you. I closed the letter and sat there for a long time. For a moment, I wished he'd understood all of this while we were still together. Instead, he figured it out only after I'd packed his suitcases. I folded the pages, dropped them into the recycling bin, and quietly accepted the truth. The apology was real. It had simply arrived too late. The following Monday, my manager called me into his office. There have been some strange reviews posted about you. My stomach tightened as he turned his monitor toward me. 4 one-star reviews had appeared over the weekend. None mentioned engineering or our work. Everyone attacked me personally. Untrustworthy woman. Abandons people who love her. Don't hire anyone who destroys families. I already knew who had written them. I'm sorry, I said quietly. My ex-boyfriend's family isn't handling the breakup very well. I looked genuinely surprised. They don't even work here? No. Have they ever dealt with this company? No. He leaned back in his chair. Then this isn't criticism, it's harassment. I handed him screenshots of the missed calls, text messages, unknown numbers, and even photos Ethan had taken outside my apartment before we broke up, so he could see the situation for himself. My manager quietly read through the screenshots, scrolling past the missed calls, text messages, fake reviews, and the letter Ethan had written before finally looking up. You've been dealing with all of this by yourself. I didn't want my personal life affecting work. He shook his head. You should have told us sooner. By lunchtime, the fake reviews had been removed and building security had photos of Ethan's parents, not because anyone believed they were dangerous, but because their unexpected visits had already crossed a line. Walking back to my desk, I realized something that hadn't occurred to me before. Even though the relationship was over, I was still cleaning up problems that existed because Ethan had never been willing to set boundaries with his family. A few nights later, I matched with a woman named Rachel on a dating app. Her profile looked ordinary enough, a teacher who loved hiking and owned a golden retriever. We exchanged a few messages before she casually wrote, "By the way, Ethan really misses you." I sighed. The profile had been created only a few days earlier. There were almost no personal details, no mutual connections, and every photo looked recently uploaded. It was obviously fake. I unmatched her, reported the account, and closed the app. Apparently, saying goodbye once hadn't been enough for everyone else. The following Saturday morning, my apartment intercom buzzed. "It's me," Ethan said. "I just want 5 minutes." "I already read your letter." His voice immediately brightened. "You did?" "Yes. And I believe every word in it. I just don't believe any of it changes what happened." After a long pause, he quietly admitted, "I wish I'd become that person sooner." "So do I." I ended the call, and to his credit, he never buzzed my apartment again. 2 weeks later, I signed a lease across town. The apartment was larger, closer to work, and had better security. But what mattered most was that it felt like a place where I could finally start over. While packing the kitchen, I found the expensive bottle of wine I'd once bought for Ethan's parents. They'd never even opened it. I looked at it for a moment before placing it in a donation box. Someone else could enjoy it. I wasn't bringing those memories into my new home. By Sunday evening, the apartment was still full of unopened boxes. I sat on the living room floor eating takeout with nothing around me except a folding chair and bare walls. I expected the apartment to feel empty. Instead, it felt lighter than it had in months. For the first time in almost 2 years, my phone wasn't buzzing with another apology, another excuse, or another request to please just talk. Healing didn't arrive because people finally admitted they were wrong. It happened because I stopped waiting for them to become the people I'd needed them to be. A few months later, life became wonderfully ordinary again. Work settled into a routine, and in early spring, my manager offered me the transportation project I'd spent years hoping to lead. "You've earned it," he said. Walking back to my desk, I couldn't help smiling. Ethan's family had spent 18 months implying I wasn't ambitious enough, yet the biggest opportunity of my career arrived without any of their approval. A few weeks later, I received a message from Megan, one of Ethan's oldest friends. "I wanted to contact you, but I told him not to." He listened. She went on to explain that he'd been in therapy for several months, had moved into his own place, and was finally setting boundaries with his family. I simply replied, "I'm glad." And I meant it, not because I wanted him back, but because I genuinely hoped he became the man he'd promised to be, even if it was too late for us. Megan's final message read, "He doesn't expect another chance. He just hopes you don't hate him." I looked out the office window before answering. I don't hate him. I just don't belong in his future anymore. About a month later, I started saying yes to life again. I spent weekends hiking with friends, accepted dinner invitations I'd been turning down for months, and slowly stopped measuring myself against a woman I'd never even met. One evening, Sarah smiled across the table and said, "You laugh more now." I hadn't noticed until she said it, but she was right. Somewhere along the way, I'd stopped worrying about saying the wrong thing, buying the wrong gift, or wearing the wrong outfit. There was no one left keeping score. That summer, I ran into Ethan at a neighborhood coffee shop. He looked healthier than I remembered, calmer too. "I wasn't expecting this," he said with an awkward smile. Neither was I. We talked for a few minutes. He told me therapy had changed the way he saw his family, and for the first time he admitted that staying silent had never kept the peace. It had simply cost him the person he loved. "I'm still learning," he said, "but I'm trying." "I'm glad," I answered, and this time there was nothing difficult about saying it. The silence between us wasn't awkward because there was anything left to argue about. It was the silence that comes when two people finally accept something they've been avoiding for far too long. Around us, the coffee shop carried on as though nothing had happened. People laughed, collected their drinks, and hurried back to work, completely unaware that an entire chapter of our lives was ending at the table beside them. Ethan looked at me and took a slow breath. "There's something I've wanted to say." I waited. "I'm sorry, not because we broke up, but because I kept asking you to tolerate things I never should have accepted in the first place. I thought avoiding conflict made me a good son." Henny gave a small, self-conscious smile. "It just made me a terrible partner." "I know," I said quietly. He laughed under his breath. "Megan told me you'd probably say exactly that." For the first time in months, we both smiled, and it didn't hurt. After a moment, he looked back at me. "I really did love you." "I know." I held his gaze. "I just wish we'd both realized it sooner." He lowered his eyes before asking one final question. "I guess this is goodbye." "I think it has been for a while." He stood and held out his hand, not to ask for another chance, but simply to say goodbye the way we should have from the beginning. I shook it. "Take care of yourself." "You too." I turned toward the door, then paused. "I'm seeing someone." I smiled. "I hope she's good to you." "I hope so too." He hesitated before adding, "My parents actually like her." This time I smiled without bitterness. "I hope they treat her better than they treated me." He nodded, understanding exactly what I meant, then quietly walked out of the coffee shop. I watched him leave, expecting to feel regret, anger, or sadness. Instead, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a long time. Peace. Later that afternoon, Megan sent me another message. "He told me you ran into each other. He said you were kinder than he deserved." I replied, "There wasn't any reason to be cruel." A minute later, another message appeared. "He also wanted you to know he finally told his parents they'll never be part of another relationship unless they respect the woman he's with." I looked at the screen for a long moment before smiling. Good. I hope he never forgets that. A few months later, I found myself saying yes to life again. Eventually, that included someone new. There were no grand gestures or dramatic declarations, just quiet consistency and the comforting feeling that I never had to compete for my place in his life. The first time he invited me to meet his family, I admitted I was nervous. He squeezed my hand. "My family already likes you." I laughed. "They've never even met me." "They don't have to," he said. "They trust my judgment." Those words stayed with me all evening. Dinner was wonderfully ordinary. His mother asked about my work because she was genuinely interested. His father wanted to hear more about a bridge project I'd mentioned, and his sister thanked me for bringing dessert. No one compared me to an ex, measured me against someone else's accomplishments, or made me feel as though I was borrowing another woman's place at the table. Driving home that night, I realized something that had taken me far too long to understand. For 18 months, I'd believed I was competing with Olivia. I wasn't. Olivia had moved on long before I ever entered Ethan's life. The real problem had never been another woman. It had been a family unwilling to let go of the past and a man who stayed silent while they clung to it. People often imagine closure as some dramatic final victory. Mine wasn't. There was no public humiliation, no revenge, and no last-minute plea for another chance. Just two people accepting the truth too late to save what they once had. Ethan finally learned that silence can hurt just as much as cruel words. His family learned that constantly comparing someone's partner to an ex can destroy the very future they claim to want. As for me, I learned something far more valuable. Looking back, I don't remember every comparison his family made. What I remember is how quiet the apartment felt after Ethan left. That was the moment I realized peace isn't something another person gives you. Sometimes it's something you finally choose for yourself. And that choice changed my life far more than any argument ever could.